Hey friends, welcome back Behind the Walls with your girl Anna B. So glad you joined me for another episode, and a huge thank you for the support you guys been showing the channel. To all of our new friends, welcome, and a special shout out to all of my friends who've been rocking with me since day one. I love you guys. So excited to see us continue to grow. So if you're new here and you have yet to subscribe, don't wait any longer. Go ahead and smash that button because I got plenty more in store. A big shout out to our friend who requested this state for today's video. So let's get into it. Women serving life in Colorado.
I have life without parole for a felony murder charge. I know that as a person, I've caused harm, and I know that I can't take that back. And every day I wake up in here and I think about my victim's family. When I came into prison, I was just a teenager. I've been incarcerated for 25 years now, and probably for a good 20 years I coasted through my DOC sentence. And now I wake up every day with meaning and purpose because I can be a voice for the facility, because I can connect our world to the community.
Donald Andy Anderson's battered body was found May 5th, 1997 at the Trey Restaurant and Lounge, located at 114 South Grand Avenue, where he was the manager and bartender. Cynthia and her co-defendant, Joseph Valdez, posed as customers before demanding the 67-year-old man give them the money from the register. Donald refused. Joseph and Cynthia then used pool cues, a bottle, and a knife to kill Donald. After the attack, the couple left, catching a taxi back to Joseph's mother's house where they were living. The couple showered and changed, leaving their blood-soaked clothing and other evidence behind before boarding a bus to Texas. An autopsy revealed that stabbing wounds to Mr. Anderson's chest and a cut to his jugular vein caused his death. The day after Mr. Anderson's body was found, Crime Stoppers received the first of several calls with information regarding his death. The first call confirmed that Cynthia and Joseph were suspects and that they had fled the state. The same caller called back the next day and explained how things escalated to murder due to Mr. Anderson refusing to follow Joseph's orders. The tips led investigators to speak with Joseph's family members, one telling them that they were there when Joseph and Cynthia arrived. Joseph had blood on his clothes and shoes. Cynthia, she had a broken steak knife. They had about 2 6-packs of beers and a wad of cash. Joseph admitted that he robbed the Trey Restaurant and Lounge, that he killed Donald, and that Cynthia cut the man's throat. Police found beer bottles stained with dried blood and a plastic bag containing blood-stained socks and a broken knife handle in Miss Valdez's home. 2 steak knives, which matched the broken handle knife, were in the kitchen, and burned bank deposit slips belonging to Mr. Anderson were discovered in the kitchen sink and the trash can at the house. At the Trey building, police found a beer mug near Mr. Anderson's eyeglasses and hearing aid, with a fingerprint that matched back to Cynthia. The two were arrested in Amarillo, Texas, days after the tips were received. Joseph, 18, and Cynthia, 19 at that time. 2 sheriff deputies traveled to Texas and transported the teens back to Pueblo to face charges. But it didn't take Joseph long to decide he did not want to face a death penalty jury trial or put either his family or Mr. Anderson's family through a trial. He admitted to killing Mr. Anderson expressed remorse over a robbery that went totally bad when a bar knife became involved, and pleaded guilty to first-degree murder while committing a robbery. Joseph Valdez was sentenced to life in prison without parole August of 1997. At the time of Joseph's plea, the state was still deciding whether they were going to seek the death penalty against Cynthia or not. But by March of the following year, a plea was offered to Cynthia, which she also took to avoid the death penalty. March 12, 1998, she pled guilty to first-degree murder and was sentenced to life in prison without chance of parole. Through her lawyers, she apologized and she blamed alcohol for her actions that occurred that night. Mr. Anderson's widow and his daughters were present at her sentencing and left Cynthia with some powerful words. My father was a smart man. He knew about hustlers, cons, and failed petty criminals like you and Valdez, who were always on the make looking to get over. Maybe you did catch my father by surprise that night. Perhaps he had grown too trusting. However, the events that night that played out, I want you to know that my father was more than some helpless old man with glasses and a hearing aid. He was a fighter in the truest sense of the word. And from his life and death, I learned I am a fighter, a survivor. If I do nothing else with my life, I will continue to rise above the very things you let reduce you to just another uneducated Mexican girl on her way to jail for the rest of her life. In the opening clip, she said that she coasted through the first 20 years of her incarceration. I wonder if those words really set on her soul and in her mind and played over and over in her head for 20 years. Everyone said some powerful words, but just makes me curious if that's the reason of her coasting through 20 years of incarceration. That clip was from a interview she did with PBS, Rocky Mount PBS. She was a producer at Denver Women's Correctional Facility for Inside Wire, which was a 24/7 radio station that's produced by and for incarcerated people across Colorado. And it's the first of its kind in the country. So I think I read that the Inside Wire streams to every television in every prison in the state, reaching about 14,000 prisoners. But in closing, of course, I send condolences to the Anderson family, and may Mr. Donald Andy Anderson continue to rest in peace. Imagine being hired to do a job only to witness a crime while you're working. As you stand there, someone shoves a gun in your face and threatens you to keep quiet. Despite the danger, your sense of right and wrong and your commitment to protecting your community drive you to go to the police. Your information helps get the suspects arrested. But 2 months later, you're gunned down outside your home. Sadly, this was reality for David Henderson, a loved and respected man. David was a traveling mechanic who advertised his services on Craigslist. He was hired by Tina and Terrence Black to do some work on a car of one of their friends. After completion of his services, as he waits for his ride, Terrence Black and his partners enter his mother's Denver motel room with a garbage can filled with marijuana trim, guns, duffel bags, mask, and gloves. You know, all the accessories needed for a robbery. Terrence and his crew had robbed the Cure marijuana dispensary on Yale Avenue. Terrence pointed a gun at David and an acquaintance and said, "Y'all better not say anything or I will fucking kill you." Later that day, David told the police what he had seen. Authorities responded to the motel and eventually arrested Terrence and several others. In September, Terrence and 3 other co-defendants were charged with 2 counts of first-degree burglary, 1 count of conspiracy to commit first-degree burglary, 3 counts of aggravated robbery, and 1 count of conspiracy to commit aggravated robbery. though Tina Black, his mother, was not one of his co-defendants. That same month, Terrence and Tina had received the motion of discovery in the robbery case, and in error, it was a non-redacted version, which listed David Henderson as the main witness against Terrence and his co-defendants. With knowing this, they believed they needed to get rid of David. To avoid suspicion, Tina said they should wait a little while before they took action. In October of 2016, David was shot down outside the apartment he shared with his mother in Denver. In July 2017, the charges against Terrence in the dispensary robbery case were dismissed. But the next month, the state refiled the robbery charges and added 2 additional: first-degree murder and conspiracy to commit first-degree murder. Tina was too indicted on the same charges, including the dispensary robbery charges. Though Terrence may felt he won a victory, when later the district court granted his motion to dismiss the dispensary robbery charges, finding that the people had violated his statutory and constitutional speedy trial rights by using the speedy trial period in the dispensary robbery case as a witness protection device while they investigated the more serious charges against him. 8 months later, it was decided that mother and son would be tried jointly, even though Tina was still charged with the dispensary robbery. After a 4-week trial, mother and son were both found guilty as charged. The court sentenced both to life without parole, plus additional decades in prison. Just as David's sister said, "It's a shame his life got taken for trying to do the right thing. And for me, I know mistakes happen. But damn, would David still be alive if someone would have just clicked a button?" Rest in power to David Henderson, and condolences to his family. On November 28, 2022, at about 3:42 a.m., Greeley officers responded to a shooting in the 1100 block of East 24th Street Lane. When officers arrived on scene, they located Herminia Marquez. She was in the backyard of a property and appeared to be shot. She was later pronounced dead. The investigation into her murder produced no solid leads or arrests until January 2023, when a detective spoke with a man who indicated 27-year-old Mary Garcia had confessed to him. She told him Amos Alanis, her boyfriend, loaned a stolen Audi to his sister, Anahi. When the vehicle wasn't returned, Amos tried to contact the 2 women to demand the car back. Text messages later confirmed that the brother and sister were going back and forth. Amos threatened to use his guns with the women if they didn't return the stolen vehicle. How you going to use guns on somebody to get your stolen car back? That doesn't really sound right. Mary allegedly told the man she helped Amos search for the Audi in a stolen Suburban. The 2 encountered Herminia driving the Audi at a 7-Eleven. Mary said she pursued Herminia while Amos fired a high-capacity Glock at the vehicle. Herminia stopped, and Amos exited the Suburban and shot Herminia. The detective later spoke with a witness to verify the man's claims. The witness reported seeing Mary Garcia drive the stolen Suburban and hearing about the shooting from Mary. Video footage captured around 3:35 a.m. shows the Audi at the 7-Eleven, followed by the Suburban 10 minutes later. 3:40 a.m., 8 gunshots are heard over home surveillance after footage captures the Suburban pursuing the Audi near 24th Street Lane. There was additional video surveillance footage that captured the driver door of the Audi open, someone getting out, running toward the backyard of a home in the 1100 block of East 24th Street Lane. A person in the passenger seat of the Suburban ran after her, and a gunshot is heard. The following day, a well judge issued a warrant for Mary Garcia, charging her with first-degree murder and conspiracy. Friday, January 13th, Greeley police located Mary driving a vehicle around 34th Street and Burlington Avenue in Evans, Colorado. Officers attempted to initiate a traffic stop. However, Mary did not stop, and a pursuit started. She continued to elude police for approximately 6 miles, but at the intersection of 11th Avenue and 25th Street, she got out, ran, but she was captured quickly and taken into custody. Now, while she was out and committing this crime, she was out on parole. A warrant was issued for her boyfriend, Amos, for first-degree murder, and his sister, Anahi, as an accessory to first-degree murder. Not only was Mary wanted for murder, taking the police on a high-speed chase, she was also busy during in between that time because she faced additional charges related to 2 robberies that occurred after Herminia's murder. On January 1st, 2023, Greeley police investigated a reported home invasion robbery. During the investigation, the victim identified Mary as one of the suspects, and she was the one armed with the handgun. A warrant was issued out for her arrest for aggravated robbery and first-degree burglary. On January 3rd, Johnstown police investigated a reported robbery. The investigation revealed that Mary Garcia struggled to rip free the victim's purse. A gunshot was fired, and she fled. Another warrant was issued for her arrest, charging her with aggravated robbery. On July 9th of this year, 2024, a jury convicted Mary of the murder of Herminia Marquez. The following day, she was sentenced to spend the rest of her natural life in prison. Amos's sister, Anahi, was arrested on April 7th, 2023, but she was released in May, and her charges are still pending. She does have a court date scheduled for November 20th, 2024. Now, her brother Amos, he was later apprehended in 2023. He's currently still in Weld County Jail with numerous pending charges, including murder, robbery, and motor vehicle theft. Now, articles said that his trial was supposed to begin in March of this year, but I could not confirm that took place. I do not see any convictions, and he also has some pending court dates. Herminia's family and friends were very saddened by her death. I do send condolences out to the Marquez family and all of Herminia's friends and loved ones, and may she rest in peace.
Colorado Springs woman is preparing to spend the rest of her life behind bars. Daxximo Simmons was found guilty of 5 different charges, including first-degree murder and tampering with a dead body.
She was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole, plus an additional 27 years for 2 other charges. The man behind us, Daxximo Sea's body, was identified by the coroner's office in October of 2023, though Colorado Springs police say they knew he had been murdered more than a year before.
Let's turn to 11 News reporter Jared Dean. He's in studio right now. You have been looking into some of the really disturbing details about this case.
Yeah, Adam, this is a case that we've been covering for over 2 years now. Daxximo Simmons has been in custody since April of 2022. And now, 2.5 years after that crime was committed, Simmons was sentenced. We want to warn you, some of the details in this case may be disturbing for some viewers. After a long list of court appearances, motions, and delays, Daxximo Simmons will now spend time in prison for the murder of 48-year-old Daxximo Sea. The sentencing came down just after the verdict was read in court Wednesday. According to police, they got an anonymous tip on October 5th, 2023, about a bag of human remains. They said they were found inside a drainage culvert east of I-25 and Fillmore Street near Roswell Park. The remains found in the bag were identified as Sea's by the El Paso County's coroner's office a week later. After the body was identified, Simmons made several court appearances. The trial was delayed with several motions and proposed transportation orders before the trial over the past few weeks. Along with life in prison, Simmons will also get an additional 24 years for tampering with a dead body and 3 years for tampering with physical evidence.
Prosecutors alleged that Daxximo Simmons killed Daxximo because he was a registered sex offender. They described it as a relationship he had with a 17-year-old girl in California when he was 25. Daxximo was described by prosecutors as a woman with an obsession over child molestation due to fears that her daughter was a victim of sex trafficking, further saying she has an unrestrained hatred for anyone who would molest a child. Deck is currently at the Denver Women's Correctional Facility serving out her life without parole sentence. Nashika Bramble was convicted in July 2019 for the deaths of her two daughters, who were left in a car without food or water by members of a doomsday religious group. 10-year-old Michaela Roberts and 8-year-old Hannah Marshall's bodies were found badly decomposed in a 1999 Toyota sedan covered with a tarp, parked on a marijuana and vegetable farm near the southwestern Colorado town of Norwood in September 2017. Their bodies were too far gone to confirm what actually caused their deaths, but authorities said the girls had been dead for at least 2 weeks. The heat, dehydration, and starvation all played a part in their deaths. A diary found in the car written by one of the girls indicated they had been in that car for a significant amount of time. Their bodies were surrounded by a few empty food cans. Nashika was sentenced to life without parole on both first-degree murder counts she was charged with. A year later, Daxximo Sea of Haiti, the cult leader who once referred to the two young girls as little bitches, was sentenced to back-to-back 32-year sentences for her role in the sisters' deaths. Her evil ass was acquitted of murder, but was convicted of 2 counts of felony child abuse. She claimed the group members were not humans, but spiritual beasts that were going to survive the coming apocalyptic times. She stated that the girls were unclean and she didn't want them around her children. Her own 2 children were found alive on the farm and taken into protective custody. San Miguel County Sheriff Bill Masters said in his 37 years as sheriff, he's never seen anything as cruel and heartless as this case. Nashika and Madani are not the only individuals who were charged for Michaela and Hannah's deaths. Frederick Blair was befriended by the group when they met him at a truck stop in Grand Junction, May of that year. Madani told him that the group was on a spiritual retreat in search of St. Michael. She declared Frederick to be St. Michael, the one the Creator had sent to help them. He also said that everyone that was living on the Norwood property were under Madani's direction and control. He added he moved out of his Norwood home and onto the property with the group members sometime after their arrival. It was after moving onto the property that he became under the control of Madani out of fear that she was going to shatter his spirit with some kind of magical powers he believed she could control him with. He was under Madani's spell and would do anything she asked of him. He also added that the other group members were also influenced by her powers. When asked by investigators why he didn't report or help the girls after he knew food was being withheld, he again said he was fearful of Madani. According to Frederick's account, no one was allowed to leave the property. Now, Frederick told his father, who was of Dallas, Texas, that there were 2 dead children on the property during a September 8th visit. His father then notified authorities. Madani said that she prepared all the group's meals, including food that Nashika provided for the children in the car. When the food supply started to run low sometime during the summer, Madani even refused to feed Nashika. I wonder if this is why she looked like this on her mugshot and transformed over time. While Madani and Nashika faced murder charges, Frederick Blair was charged with 2 counts of felony child abuse resulting in death and 1 count of being an accessory to a crime. He accepted a plea offer that allowed him to avoid any child abuse convictions, and looks like it allowed him to be freed from DOC custody a lot sooner than the 12 years he was sentenced to, because he's not listed in the DOC records at all. He pled guilty to an accessory charge. Ika Eden from Jamaica was described by prosecutors as the group's Girl Friday, and the mother of Corey Sutherland, who was excluded out of the group by Madani and replaced by Frederick Blair. She faced 2 counts of child abuse resulting in death. She had been the girl's caretaker, a role which she abandoned when commanded to do so by Madani. It was her Toyota the girls spent their final days inside of. They looked to her for care and comfort. Now, she was previously found incompetent for for trial in 2018, but in 2021, she was found guilty as charged and sentenced to 48 years in prison for each count to be served consecutively. Ashford Nathaniel Archer of Haiti was the partner of Madani and father of the 2 surviving children with her, was found guilty after a 3-week trial of 2 felony counts of child abuse, knowingly, recklessly causing death, and a felony count of accessory to a crime. He was sentenced to 24 years in prison with time served in 2019. Practicing what you believe in is understood and should be respected, but it should never come to a point where children or anyone's life is taken by the acts of evilness, abandonment, and abuse the way these 2 little girls lived in their last days. Rest in peace to their sweet little souls. Barbara Freeman was found guilty by a jury of attempted first-degree murder, 2 counts of attempted second-degree murder, and conspiracy to commit first-degree murder. Barbara was estranged from her daughter, who had moved from her home in California to Colorado with her child and her boyfriend. Barbara attempted to gain legal custody of her grandchild but failed. So, in response, Barbara and her husband then drove to Colorado. Barbara's husband was not the father of her daughter. When they arrived, Robert Freeman attached a pipe bomb to his stepdaughter's car with her family inside. He attempted to detonate the bomb by remote control. It produced a loud noise, but it did not explode. The daughter got out of the car and ran, and while running, she was shot twice by her stepfather. Luckily, she survived. Robert Freeman was arrested on scene and was eventually convicted for the crimes committed that day. Barbara, on the other hand, the same day her daughter was just shot twice, flew to Nevada. She was met there by agents of the Federal Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, who encouraged her to return to Colorado, which she did the next day. She was questioned extensively by federal agents and Colorado police officers, and eventually made statements implicating herself in the bombing and shooting incident. She was sentenced in 2000 to decades behind bars, or essentially a life sentence. Her next parole eligibility date is April 2055. Her husband Robert faced the same sentences. He does not have parole eligibility until 2062. Today he's 80 years old and is at the Arkansas Valley Correctional Facility.